Welcome to Sierra Nova Comic Podcast, episode 29. We've got Chase Kantor with us.
How's it going?
Doing pretty good. Greg, introduce yourself.
I'm Greg. I'm the founder, co-creator of Sierra Nova Comics and all the comics that we have.
And I'm Dylan. I'm the tech guy that's also editor-in-chief. And Chase, introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chase. I guess I'm the guest. Yeah, I write comics. I make comics, and so the Venn diagram of guests that you have, they have on here with expertise in comics, is a circle for me.
Nailed.
Okay, yeah, you got the Saga of the Jack of Spades. I don't know if you have any others, but I know that you have.
We've got a couple that are kind of in development. Right now, it's the best time to be in comics right now because no one's working.
Yeah.
So everyone's got like endless free time, but no one's doing
much
anything.
time on my hands.
So we have a sequel in the works. I don't know. I wouldn't even call it a sequel. It's kind of it's part of the same universe. It's just telling the story through another character's perspective. That one is. Hopefully we'll have it out for the con circuit next year. But we're still finding artists for that. And then we've got a couple other projects that we'd like to start as soon as possible, but with everything going on right now, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, what's like your little 60-second elevator pitch for Jack of Spades?
So the Saga of the Jack of Spades is it's a comic that I've created. It's all about the story behind the deck of cards. So usually what I tell people is if you took a premise like Game of Thrones, with a bunch of families running around trying to hack each other's heads off, right? If you took that premise but set it in the Princess Bride universe, that's essentially the tone that we're going for, right? So it's a fun, swashbuckling. Thank you. It's a swashbuckling fantasy adventure series. Lots of fencing and fighting, and torture and revenge. But at its core,
fighting, true love.
There you go. So so it's all about those things wrapped in one story about the history of the playing card deck. So we're taking
that's all in one story.
Exactly. For 144 pages, we figure it out, and there you go.
You keep using that word. I don't think you know what.
Yeah, exactly. That was Princess Bride was like a huge influence on this because I love the Princess Bride. Princess Bride is one of my top 5.
Oh, 100%. Top 5 here too.
Yeah, favorite franchise of all time. But I love that story. What I found really, really interesting was the character of Prince Humperdinck. Prince Humperdinck and the Dread Pirate Roberts, and the concept of the Dread Pirate Roberts.
You said you'd never say that name again.
What I didn't realize growing up, because I've been watching this movie since I was 7 years old. I didn't realize this until I was, an adult watching it, that, the Dread Pirate Roberts isn't actually a person. It's just it's a title, right?
Yes.
And it passed from, whoever was, Wesley's captor to Wesley, and then to Inigo Montoya. And I thought, well, that's a really cool premise. And obviously that story starts off with someone who is, a noble altruistic figure like Wesley, and it goes to the next noble altruistic figure like Inigo Montoya. But what if we started with a character that was as loathed and as despised as Prince Humperdinck? and where will that kind of story take us? And I think that's much more of an interesting premise because I'm always kind of leaning towards the anti-hero and kind of what motivates those types of characters. So in our story, we start off with Jack, who is, I know this isn't an elevator pitch anymore.
No, that's fine.
We're going up and down the Empire State Building.
You already hooked people with that Princess Bride, so.
We start off a character like Jack, who is the prince and heir to the Spade Kingdom. He's someone that's never had to want for anything in his life. He's grown up privileged and never knowing the the honesty of a day's work. And we set him down a path where we have to, or Jack has to come to terms with not only his own privilege, but with the realization that he's not the center of the universe, and it's kind of thrust upon him. So in that respect, it's kind of like a coming of age tale, because it's kind of about that loss of innocence.
Very cool.
That's cool. Yeah, I fell asleep to The Princess Bride like the other night because it's on Disney Plus now. So
yeah, I know.
That's probably like the third time I've ever seen that movie in my life, which is apparently shocking to some.
Yeah.
Did Disney Plus edit anything out of that one?
I can't imagine.
I don't think so. No.
Okay, because I know whenever movies are going up on there, they're like adding, like when Splash came up on Disney Plus, like they added that weird fur. They extended her hair past her. Yeah, because there was a scene where it's Daryl Hannah, right? Where she's diving back into the water, and obviously she has very long hair like a mermaid, but you see like a glimpse of her rear end as she's diving into the water. But as soon as they loaded it up on Disney Plus, they had someone go in and like add like this, like almost like they took the clone tool of her hair and just put it over her ass. And so when she's diving into the water, it's like when she's like swaying back and forth, running towards the surf. It's so jarring and disjointed. I'm trying to imagine what they would have done to The Princess Bride.
Yeah, I know they did something. I can't
think of anything in The Princess Bride that's too risque, though. There's really it's a very family-friendly movie. That's kind of like the whole point of it too. Is it's like the perfect, like, because don't forget it's the grandfather reading it to a grandchild. Right. Like he's
they gave Count Rugen 5 fingers. They're like, oh, those 6 fingers bug me. So
yeah,
let's give him
discrimination.
5 fingers.
Yeah,
don't happen to have 6 fingers on your right hand. You start every conversation like this.
Yeah, I know that they did some editing to like The Simpsons, but yeah, I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was like one episode. It was like
The Simpsons is on Disney Plus.
Well, yeah, yep. Disney owns everything.
I know, that's weird. I don't know why they wouldn't like just leave it on like Hulu. That's
weird. Your podcast is on Disney Plus, right?
Yeah. We just wrote an article about that too.
Yeah. Cool.
I see a red dot appear on my head. Princess Bride is definitely probably my #1 quoted movie. Like, if I quote a movie, 1 out of every 5 quotes comes from that movie easily, probably more. And
that's a healthy amount.
Yeah, and basically, when Greg and I first met, like 3 years ago now or something like that, he kept coming over my apartment and we were working on the comic books, and I kept making these, references until one day I realized he's not responding to these. I'm like, Greg, have you not seen The Princess Bride? And he goes, no, what's that? And I go, get out of my apartment.
Yeah.
Until you go and see it. You're not allowed back in here. And I kicked him out, and I didn't let him back in until he saw the movie.
That's about half of the people that I interact with at like conventions and stuff have not seen The Princess Bride.
I don't know how they get on with their lives.
I mean, people are busy.
Busy.
We had another guy on here, like he was like episode 8 or 9 or something. I think it was 8. Travis Gibb, and he his favorite movie is The Terminator, and I never saw that until he said, "Go watch The Terminator, and I'll come back on your podcast." So I saw both episode. I saw 1 and 2 of that at work, like one day. But I was just like, "Oh wow, I can't believe I haven't seen this until like that moment."
Yeah.
So like for the 80s, were you just not watching movies?
Well, I'm a 90s kid, but I haven't. Yeah.
I was about to say, it's like his parents weren't watching movies either.
Yeah. But for some, I don't. Yeah, like, well, my older brother is from the 87 or 89. No, 87, I think. Yeah, I forgot. Okay. But yeah, he mostly just watched like Full House, and I was stuck watching that. But yeah, like I watch movies at my dad's all the time, but I never watched The Terminator, which is like shocking. Like we watched Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter like all the time because I love Harry Potter.
Huge Danny Tanner head.
Yeah. Yeah. Like family.
No, my family, the way that we communicate with each other are through quotes, are through movie quotes.
That's my Christmas. That's
Yeah.
literally because I have a very big family. Like I'm one of 5. My dad's one of 6. My grandfather's one of 13. And so I have a very big family, and not all of them, but a good chunk of them comes to Christmas Eve at my grandmother's. And basically, like the entire time, like we spend all day just cooking like a big Polish dinner. But we're there from 7 a.m. until we eat dinner at 6 p.m. because of how much food we have to cook. And yeah, so the entire time, all we're doing is making references to movies. Yeah. It's a beaut, Clark. Beaut.
Yeah, I've seen that.
I didn't realize this, but the vacation movies are a very divisive set of films because I grew up watching them, right?
Oh
and
yeah.
I love the vacation movies. It's hilarious. Like when I think about if anyone would play my dad in a movie, it would probably be Chevy Chase, right? And that's one of our go-to Christmas movies, right? It's Christmas Vacation and Die Hard, and for some reason the Ten Commandments, but mostly
right?
Christmas Vacation. And then if I talk to my wife about them, she cannot stand those movies at all. And
have you spoken to somebody about this? Yeah.
It's a problem. It's getting to be a problem. I think the reason is I'm so desensitized to them that I don't see just how stressful those movies can be. My wife just absolutely cannot watch them at all. And when I try to reference them, she's like, "No, go away. Just leave. I can't."
Oh my God,
go away from me.
That's crazy. I that's probably another, like during the holidays, like yeah, Christmas Vacation's probably replaces Princess Bride in the number of times it gets quoted.
Right. Well, you want like you want to watch something that is more stressful than what you are dealing with at that particular moment.
So you can laugh it off.
Exactly. It's cathartic, right? So you like, okay, well, whatever stress I'm going through right now with 13 to 25 people coming over for a Polish Christmas, at least it's not as bad as the Griswold Christmas. Okay.
Yeah.
But she doesn't get that. That's there's a disconnect there. But
yeah.
No, when my family was when I was growing up with my family, it was just all movies. It was all 80s, either 80s action movies, or really inappropriate movies for a 6 to 7-year-old to watch.
That's funny because I'm a early '90s kid, but like all the stuff I like is from the '80s, like even or even the '70s. Like I posted something the other day on Facebook, like if you could only, it was from YouTube video I was watching, but basically they asked like if you could only bring 2 records with you to like the apocalypse, like it's the end of the world, you only can bring 2 albums, right? Which albums would you bring? One of mine would be Styx, right? So like it's
okay.
Yeah, actually, I guess that's a good question. What 2 albums would you bring?
Oh, I don't know.
You're allowed greatest hits if they have a greatest hits.
Shoot. That's a really tough question. It's going to be almost like a schizophrenic answer though. Okay, so number 1, it's going to be The Chronic 2001.
Chronic 2001.
So Dr. Dre.
Yeah. That's
yeah.
That's interesting.
Okay, and then the second one is going to be Florence and the Machine's first album.
Wow, that's 2 different complete. Wow.
Very, yeah.
Yeah, you got Dr. Dre and then you got Florence and the Machine.
Because if you're trapped on a deserted island, then you want something that spans the gamut, right? You want
that's what I thought. That's why I wanted Styx. So I get rock, and they've got ballads in there, and then my other album is Nothing But the Best from Frank Sinatra.
Oh yeah, well, that's good.
Yeah, that would cover me for all time. I'd be good with those. Like, there's obviously stuff I'd miss, but like if I had those 2, like I've listened to those albums too many times. And what about Greg?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I like I don't know, Frank Sinatra. I don't know.
No, Frank
Oh my-
Sinatra was around in the '80s, so you wouldn't have picked that one.
Like, who's
Oh.
Frank Sinatra? You mean Tank Sinatra?
I was gonna say Queen, but I thought you were gonna say that too.
See,
Greg's
Queen
like
would be
Ariana
another good one.
Yeah, Queen, because
I don't know which album I'd have to take though, because I don't know. It's so funny because like I know a lot of their songs, but I don't know any of their albums. Like I've never
greatest
like
hits, because they probably have like Bohemian Rhapsody, and
if they have a greatest hits, that'd be a good one.
I think they do.
They must have like 5.
Yeah, no, that's the issue. Is I don't know if they have the greatest hits. They probably have greatest hits 1, greatest hits 2.
Yeah,
That makes sense to me.
yeah. I
I
didn't see
still
a
remember
chart.
when I first found out like what songs Queen did because I didn't know for the longest time, and then I realized every commercial I had heard in the entire '90s and early 2000s was a Queen's song. Like I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's
And
true.
it makes sense too because like now like the songs move along with the people that have the money, and at that point, that's when all like adults were like full adulting, so they all had money that they could spend on frivolous things or upgrades. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Like you'll notice now too, like they're putting Dragon Ball Z in a bunch of stuff because now our generation has money.
I don't. Ever since I got rid of TV, I'm not even watching commercials anymore. So I get like 5-second ads off of YouTube that I mostly skip immediately.
Hey, I haven't had like cable in Jesus, like 8 years. Holy crap! I haven't had it in a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what commercials
What
look
year
like
is
anymore.
Yeah,
You know what?
Do they still exist? Do commercials still exist? I don't even know.
They do when I watch the Super Bowl because I have to go over someone else's house who has cable still.
Well, that's not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, right. But yeah, it's definitely interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't see the Terminator, but I did see all of the vacation movies. Even though, like, when the Christmas one was just on last year, a coworker was like, "Wait, did this come before this one?" So I had to look it up, and it was like super confusing because Rusty is the younger of the two.
Don't try to make sense of it.
Yeah, it's
No, there's
very
no
weird.
order.
No, it's not even like Indiana Jones where it's like, oh, the second one comes before the first one. No, just don't even try.
Yeah, like Phil hit her head. I went crooked. Kicked by a donkey. I went back. Like, who knows?
I don't know.
Shitter's Paul. Yeah.
No, that's the fun. One of the funniest running jokes in that series is the kids that are all over the place, and then you get Johnny Galecki and Julia Lewis in the third one. And that's like, oh, okay, that's perfect casting.
Nice. Anyways, now that we've tangented off into the abyss of the 80s here, back to comics. So, what actually got you into comics? Like before writing your first comic, were you like already reading comics, and what got you into like then creating comics?
I'm like one of the worst comic book writers because I'm not all that well versed in comics, to be perfectly honest. I'd read a few. I grew up. I have an older brother that's quite a bit older than me, and he was into comics for a little bit. And most of my my movie preferences and music preferences is essentially determined by my oldest sibling, right? So like with everyone. But he had the first trade that came out for Death of Superman. And I was like 6 or 7 years old when that came out, was 92. And that kind of blew me away and obviously this didn't stick, but I thought, oh, someone had the balls to actually like kill Superman. Like,
yeah, I remember when that came out, there was like I wasn't like conscious enough to remember, but I've read so many articles on that, like how like people were crying when that came out, like people were devastated.
Right, yeah, but that was the that was kind of the first ever like in a main in the big two where they had the big event comic right? And then it was immediately followed by, "Oh, don't worry, we're just kidding. Don't worry about it. It's fine. No, Superman's okay." But as like an impressionable 6-year-old, that was like devastating to me. And I read through the comic and probably didn't understand most of it because I'm 6 years old and can barely read. But that I think started my kind of fascination with that type of medium. And it wasn't until I was significantly older. I went to film school. I went to Vancouver Film School in their writing for film and TV program. And they had a course about writing for comics. And it was an elective course. You didn't have to take it, but I thought, oh, that'd be really neat. I like comics. And I got there, and it was completely alien to me. I kind of had a background in writing, film scripts and TV scripts, and writing for comics was so different because it was like you were the writer, you were the art director, you were the cinematographer all in one, and you could really have, a visual style in mind. You could really see how you wanted to convey that story, and the only thing that would stop you is the ability, either your own artistic ability or the ability of the artist that you were working with. And the program was really cool because it wasn't just writing this and then you have a script and then that's it. They paired you up with another student in their program. This is kind of sounded like a commercial for Vancouver Film School. I don't know if they do this anymore.
It's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, they pair you up with either an art production student or some sort of animation student, and then you kind of go through the script. It's not very long. It's anywhere between 6 and 10 pages. It's like you're kind of working on a teaser together, and you end up with a finished book or a finished teaser at the end that you can include in your portfolio. And actually, the story of the Jack of Spades started there. That was the book that I worked on, just as a teaser, and it was something that I felt needed longer than 10 pages to actually tell that story. And it was something that I wanted to continue to work on after I graduated. But I ended up I put it on the shelf along with like the rest of my writing career because I ended up moving back home. And then I ended up doing grad school in neuroscience. And that lasted a couple years, and then I moved to London and did a postdoc at Imperial College London at a diabetes institute, and then I moved back home, and then that's kind of when I started writing, in earnest. Like, okay, I've delayed this long enough. I need to work on this book. I need to get this finished. And that's kind of where it started. It was this, 10-year labor of love of this story that I just been kind of thinking of ever since film school. And finally, I ran out of excuses for why I wasn't doing it. And that's essentially what we started doing.
That's awesome because there's a couple of things you mentioned in there. I was going to say, first off, the fact that you studied, what did you say? Was it neuroscience?
Yeah,
that's right.
That's awesome. I love all that stuff. As you can tell, I'm a bit of a reader, and I read a lot on like psychology and like neuroplasticity and things like that. It's very interesting stuff. And but anyways, yeah. The other thing though you mentioned, which is like so true, which is the medium the medium of writing in a comic book compared to any other medium is super difficult, as Greg knows. Because basically our first comic like series, like we've only gotten one created. We've finished writing the second. We're getting it drawn now. But I don't know. We don't actually know how many comics it's going to be yet because we haven't finished breaking it apart yet. But it's going to be a lot. And basically, he took a novel that he wrote and he turned it into a storyboard. But that's more for film purposes. right? And basically, the very first comic we have was the storyboard translated into a comic, which is actually like really frantic. Like you can't capture everything, because in a storyboard, you can have multiple actions in the same block if it's described properly. Where in a comic, if because you need to express everything to the reader, you need to sometimes break it apart and sometimes consolidate what you're doing so that it all makes sense. And so with our second issue, I went through it. This is how I even became our editor-in-chief. I just happened to be good at editing. I'm good at judging people. That's what it is. But basically, yeah, I went through the second issue that he wrote, and basically I'm like, where is this angle coming from? Like, what's all the other stuff in the environment? How did this person get there? What were they doing, right? And I just like started dissecting every part of the story until now, like the way the script is written, like not just what's in the script, the way it's written is so different from the original one. Like now, like every panel, it's like bird's eye view, panoramic long shot, worm's eye view, medium shot, close up. All of these details that Greg was like, I'm just going to let the artist decide. But the artist didn't have like the whole story in their head. So when they, there's certain scenes that just didn't make any sense. So after we had the first comic drawn, because it's so expensive to like have it drawn to begin with, we basically re-edited the script and then made it fit the drawing, as opposed to trying to get it all redrawn. Where this time, before we ever even showed an artist, we edited it, I don't know, 6-7 times, like going through it and making sure that it all made sense. So, some of them I even paneled out where like I was like, okay, this one's going to be a splash page. This one's going to be layered panels, because I wanted to, motion, right? Things like that. And broke it apart by pages so that like if there's like a whoa moment, like it's on the flip, right? It's like you flip the page and there it is, as opposed to it being like on the right-hand side while you're reading it and you already see something crazy already happened. Yeah. So it's definitely a very fun medium to like think about stuff like that, like the page flip. Like I don't even know if every comic book creator thinks about that. At least not all the indie ones, you know what I mean? But like that's something really interesting and important. Like if you're going to have a splash page, it should almost always be on the left-hand side so that you get that wow moment when you flip the page.
Right. No, there's definite writing conventions that are, distinct to each medium, right? I actually give workshops for writing students on either writing for comics and monomyth and structure and formatting and all those things. And each medium is very unique in how, not only how to tell your story just generally, in 3 acts, beginning, middle, and end, but also how you're meeting, the page beats, how you're generating rhythm and pace. And with comics, it's all about the page turn, right? So it's setup, suspense, and then page turn, and then payoff. And those things are definitely better learned before you start drawing. But definitely, I mean, you can go back and tweak some things. When we were working on Jack of Spades, we had the opportunity to go back in because it was picked up by a publisher. So it was originally set up in singles, and when we had a publisher come in and say, look, we want to do this, but as a trade, that gave us another opportunity to go in and kind of fix everything. Because the first issue of Jack of Spades, it looks great. We had a really fantastic art team, and it looked fantastic. But there were definite, rookie mistakes, mostly on my part with the writing and definitely the page turns. And it would have been a lot cheaper, had I learned all of this beforehand. But the trade definitely corrects some of the rookie mistakes that you would find in the first issue. But I think altogether it makes for a better story. So the old adage, writing is rewriting. I think that translates even after you have a produced page on your hands.
Yeah, there's a book by Ryan Holiday called Perennial Seller.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's fantastic. It's entirely about like creating timeless art, whether it's music, books, literally art.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things he talks about is like there's the two things you have to be weary of. One is over perfecting so that you never release the thing you're trying to work on. And then the other one is, actually knowing when it's good enough and like knowing like, oh, it's not good enough yet. It does need to be reworked. And I think that's one of the adages he says in there is just the fact that like, yeah, writing is rewriting. You have to, go through it. Now that you've, brain vomited onto paper, clean it up, figure out where the good food is and, make sure it's still appetizing when you're done with it.
No, yeah, that's a delicate balance, and I don't think you ever really figure out, what that is, and that's why it's always good to have fresh eyes on your work. And I mean, comics for me it's been eye-opening because comics is such a collaborative process, whereas everything that I was doing before was just myself, just working away at a script. And sometimes I'd have people that workshop it, but with working in comics, unless you are, that person that writes, draws, colors, letters, you're going to have to work with someone else, and they're going to bring their own, unique perspective to it that can really, if you're listening correctly, can really enhance the subject material. That's one of the cool things about comics is not only not necessarily having to rely on your own gut because you have so many other people that are contributing to it. So that's the really cool part that I find.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say, you said that you were teaching other people to like how to write.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
No, the reason I was curious about that, after we're done with the podcast, we might want to chat with you about the fact that, so right now we have another one of our creators on our platform that basically he's been working for a company in New Zealand, and he's been doing like building up like part of their comic book department essentially, but they create a bunch of stuff like anything media wise.
Okay.
And so like film, books, all that stuff. And he wanted to write, or we were talking with him about creating a video like lessons about teaching how to draw, because that's like his expertise is the drawing, and he works with writers. And so it turns out that company is actually going to be paying him now to create these videos so that they can keep rights to teach their people, because I think he's one of, if not like their best artist on their team.
Okay.
And so, but the original reason he was doing it was so that we could share it with our creators, so we can make our creators better too. And so now it's cool because he's going to get paid to do it. He can still keep all the rights. He can sell it on like Udemy or some online course, and then like people that have worked with us will have access to the video as well, which is awesome. But we don't have anyone that teaches writing, and I might definitely we can chat about it after. But it was just something interesting because like I intuitively know a lot of that stuff simply from consuming too much media as a child, but like I wouldn't be able to put any of that into words. Like I wouldn't be able to describe, like I was saying, like I intuitively know that like the page flip is when the wow should happen, but like I wouldn't know to say, build suspense, break it, like that kind of concept, which is
right.
Even in like the simplest concepts, some people who are creating comics, like for example, our first comic, Greg was just so excited to see his words turn into photos that our very first rendition was so terrible we've erased its existence.
Okay.
Like the first drawings were like, he was like, oh my God, it's drawn, look at it, they're real things. And I'm like, Greg, I'm not sure if that's a person. Like, and so yeah, it's definitely something that it's specifically indie creators, people that aren't working with a huge team, don't always think about, because they're just so excited to get their work out there that they don't think about. They think more about their work than they do about the consumer reading the work. You know what I mean? And so that's definitely something very, very astute that would be interesting to share.
Yeah, no, it's writing doesn't have to be very difficult, and lots of people can buy books about how to write and the craft of writing, and to be perfectly honest, like it's 90% horseshit, right? It's just when people are talking about writing, like I just groan internally most of the time, and I do this sometimes, and I do I'm a paid speaker, and I come in and I give lessons on workshopping and writing and things like that. But when people start talking about the craft of writing, I just like I cringe sometimes, because the majority of it is like this self-aggrandizing, self-congratulatory.
This is how I wrote stories, and if you do it the way I did it, you'll be amazing, just like I am.
Right. I mean, there's some rules in there that are that I would behoove you to actually listen to. But a lot of it is kind of just, do you have a good story? Do you have good characters? And kind of just see where they end up. Most of writing is just subverting expectations, right?
Well, it's kind of like business too in general. Like you can have a really good marketing, you can have a really good, financial setup and bookkeeping, but it's still ultimately the product or service that needs to be good, or the rest of it will fail. It's like the core still needs to be good, which is like the story itself, like the actual premise of it needs to be something.
Cats made money.
Yeah, barely. that is still, I will never see that. Like, there's no reason to. The commercial was scary enough. I don't think it's supposed to be a horror film, but it sure looked like it.
It was an experience.
The fact that it was made is just terrifying.
But yeah, no, I'd be happy to discuss that with you guys.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, some people contact me about you guys know how to do comics and everything, and it's not it's not hard, but it's not also so easy at the same time. Like, someone just emailed us and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm trying to find the artist or whatever," and then people are telling me to find an agent. Like, you don't need an agent to find.
Also, good luck finding an agent.
Yeah,
right.
I know one guy that I'm friends with on Facebook that has an agent that I know of that actually has an agent.
Sorry, to put that in reference, Greg does nothing but communicate with other creators all day long, and he only knows one person that has an agent.
Yeah. So I was being super honest with that dude.
Unless you
email.
Unless you wrote "Why the Last Man" and Paper Girls, an agent doesn't want to represent you. Good luck.
Yeah. And then some people are like, "Oh, how do you write comics?" I'm like, well, there's not just one way to do it, but how I do it is anytime I come up with an idea, I usually have my phone in my hand like every other person in the world. So I just write notes down in my note app, and then those notes, or now Google Docs, and then I transfer those notes, and then I transform them into actual comic pages. But yeah, I was writing my serial killer comic, and I was actually writing the comic, and then midway through, I'm on page 30 of that, but then I was I want to just write notes for that, so I can go back later and then change things, because I have to connect certain things to tell people why he turned into a serial killer, why he's super insane. So I went back and just started writing notes after page 30. So I'm gonna obviously have him, Dylan, edit part of that, but I have another guy that's part of our platform, and he has a horror comic on there, Down by Contact, and Matt looked through it, and he's like, "Yeah, you pretty much have the same talent as me with writing, and you just have to change some dialogue here to shorten it, because that's one thing I'm not good at, is I can make a conversation go on forever if I wanted to in comics, but you shouldn't."
Greg, we get it, shut up.
Brevity is best.
Yeah.
So in comics.
So Dylan's you don't need to say all of this, and then he's just let's delete all of that.
Yeah, there's been quite a few times where there was a single panel where two people had a paragraph each for their bubble, and I'm this guy's just not going to talk. I was it was, yeah. He I think that. So, have you watched the real life version of Aladdin?
Not all of it.
Oh,
Got about 20 minutes in.
that's fine. That doesn't matter. I'm actually. So, did you see Beauty and the Beast?
I actually watched all of that. Yeah.
Yes, that was actually done really, really freaking well for a real life version of a cartoon. Like that was done really well for that.
Okay.
Aladdin, on the other hand, like the thing that bothered me more than anything was the removal of those little details that apparently Disney became unaware were the most important, like the metaphorical sense of what was happening. So, do you remember the scene in the cartoon where there's a prince coming into town and his horse kicks up and it's about to land on a kid, and Aladdin moves the kid out of the way and basically calls the guy an asshole? You remember that
Right.
scene?
Yeah.
Right. So it's really important. It's actually one of like, so when it comes to storytelling, like I was saying, I can't always put it in words, but I can definitely describe why it's important.
Mhm.
And the reason that whole scene is important from beginning to end is you see Aladdin being altruistic, saving a kid. This
Right.
asshole who's supposedly the best because he's rich, is clearly rude, right? And people can just recognize that, especially children, right? So then what happens is he basically goes, "Oh, if I was as rich as you, I could afford to buy manners." And the guy throws him into the mud. Remember, he like bounces him into the mud. So now Aladdin, who's already like the street rat, is now thrown into dirt, right? Like a pig, like he's worthless. And the guy goes something along the lines of, "You were born a street rat, you will die a street rat, and only your fleas will mourn you," right? It's like
Right.
real dark. But there's so many specific things that happen in that 15-second window that make the scene amazing. The first thing is Aladdin gets knocked into the mud. The next thing is the prince looks at him for half a second, looks away, trots away while belittling him. He
Right.
doesn't even give him the time of day to look at him. He's still continuing with his day, basically going, "You're a piece of shit," right? And you'll notice that in the cartoon, it is daytime when that happens. And as the guy's trotting off, again, he's not looking at him. Aladdin's finally getting back up. He's going to rush after him, and the giant gates of the palace wall close in front of him. And he looks up and sees the whole thing, and it slowly turns to night. And then he goes back to his little keep, and it's the riff-raff street rat, that whole scene.
Right.
And then you look at the palace at night, right? And all of that's like, it just shows like that the day is over, and it's just like, this is where he ends up in this piece of crap place, while that asshole gets to go and party in a palace. And then the day goes, or the night goes to day, and it's a new day, and that's the next day when he meets Jasmine, right? All of that's super important. Almost none of that was in the real life version. So he doesn't get knocked into mud. The guy looks at him straight in the eyes the whole time he says all of those phrases. He slowly walks away. The doors kind of close in his face, but not with the same, emphasis where like he's chasing after him and then he like gets blocked by these giant palace doors. It stays daylight the whole time. And I think even one of the lines was like slightly changed. And like it didn't make any sense. Like all of that stuff was super powerful for that one, like maybe 20 to 30-second scene. And like I was like so mad at, like, that's the one thing I remember. I watched the whole movie too because I had to.
Right.
I just wanted to like know what they did. And like, like that there was just such a powerful showing of what was lacking, and they didn't even realize it. Like, there's no way they couldn't have turned at night. It's Disney. They got billions of dollars, right? Like, that's all they needed to do is that fade to night. He goes and cries in his room, essentially, and then like it goes to the next day, and that's when he meets. It just shows like, oh, it's a new day. Like all of that shit was metaphorical, and they left it all out. It was ridiculous.
You touched on something really, really important there, and it's one thing that's really important, especially with all of these new live action versions of Disney movies that are coming out, and you see kind of a fundamental lack of understanding of why these animated movies were so successful. And I think
100%.
you need to acknowledge first and foremost that they're animated films, right? And so animated movies generally mean you have lots of people that are working on this. It's not just an actor where you can do multiple takes and finally get the performance that you want, right? So you have to be very economical with what animators are putting on the page. So that means that within each scene, you have to have multiple things going on. One, It has to progress the character. One, it has to progress the plot. You have to get story elements out of it. You have to get a thematic element out of it. And that scene, you are perfectly encapsulating the main character's motives. You are setting up the stakes for that character as well. And you're also giving a hint to where this story is going, right? So it becomes its own little
foreshadowing.
Exactly. It's becoming its own little tableau. And a lot of that, in exchange between the both of them, and a lot of it is not, it's centered on, Aladdin's face. And that's because it's hard to animate mouths moving. It costs money for mouths to move. And it's a lot easier just to look at a character reacting to, another character speaking off screen. When you're doing animation, you have to be incredibly economical with what you are putting on the screen. So you are distilling down to its core what is fundamental to either progress the story, progress the narrative, or trying to figure out what is important to get this character from A to B plot wise or A to B story wise, right? So what was lacking in that Aladdin was, look, we have a huge budget, we have huge stars, we've got Will Smith, we have incredible, fantastic visual effects, but not really a whole lot of what made that story really great.
What made it a Disney movie?
Yeah. And we're leaving out Robin Williams out of this as well. If when you remove Robin Williams from anything, it's going to be about 1,000 times worse.
Yeah, there's two things I thought about that too. The first major one is that people don't realize that before they even hired Robin Williams, they created the genie based off of him and his stand-up. Mm-hmm. And they basically said, if we can't get him, we can't make the movie.
That's right. They did a pitch, right? They did a pitch reel.
Yep.
Of the genie doing one
stand-up.
Of Robin Williams' stand-up, right? And they showed it to him, and he's like, "Okay, yeah, I'll bite."
Yeah, and that's
and
the
they
thing
threw
too.
A bunch of money at him too. I mean, why wouldn't he do it?
Then my biggest gripe too was, I was gonna say my biggest gripe with this genie, the Will Smith version, the two biggest gripes I had. The first one is, if he had just been the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I think that movie would have been phenomenal. The reason why is because I was not expecting Robin Williams. I knew I couldn't get that. I knew I couldn't get what I wanted, and so I wanted something different, but just as like flamboyant, like just as like ridiculous as the original genie, and the Fresh Prince would have been it. That's why, like, I almost wish they got Kevin Hart to do it, because he would have been wild. Will Smith lost all of that wildness he used to have when in his youth. So that was my first biggest gripe, and then my second one was when they changed the whole plot with Jafar and getting to the genie and all of that stuff. Aladdin knew who he was the whole time, which was kind of weird, but whatever, we'll play with that. But then what ends up happening is when the genie sings his first song to Aladdin, he's basically like, "Mr. Whatever, sir, what be your pleasure be," right? That's he literally says that in the song. And I'm like, the whole point is he's supposed to make Aladdin feel for the first time that he's now the master of something. Mm-hmm. And he basically blows him off during the song 6 different times. He forgets his name. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. He's your master. And the whole reference was that typically when a street rat or whatever gets the lamp, it's actually for the Jafar that exists, right? And I get that premise, but after we got that joke, it should have been over. And it was so emphasized during that entire song. And I'm like, dude, other than that, the song actually wasn't even sung badly. I just wanted the song. Just leave it alone. It was weird that you changed it, because that's not the point of the song. The point of the song is, again, Aladdin's been shit on this whole time. He finally gets one break where this guy is going to help him out, and he still gets backstabbed, almost dies. He's now trapped in a cave for all eternity. It's now his absolute lowest point, and suddenly he becomes the master of a genie. And again, it's that dichotomy that they just erased by saying, "What's your name again?" I keep forgetting, because I'm an all-powerful genie, but I can't remember a name. It's the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah, there's a reason why I didn't finish that movie.
yeah, that alone would have made me turn it off if I didn't like if I didn't want to watch it purely so I can commentate on it. Like it was,
Yeah.
They had all of the means to make the movie great too. Like I get it, they didn't have Robin Williams, they didn't need to bank on it. Make them the Fresh Prince, make them fun. You can still sing all the songs too.
Even
like,
Lion King had James Earl Jones in it. They knew, like, hey, Mufasa is not going to work without James Earl Jones.
Lion King, without spoiling much of anything. Well, I don't know. That's going to spoil anything we're doing.
Are we still talking about spoilers for the Lion King now?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Even though I haven't seen the real life version, I'm pretty sure I know something bad happens, and then something.
It's fairly.
Do they sing in that movie? Is there songs in the movie? I feel like
Scar's like song in the live action it didn't have as much of a
evil
it didn't have like the tone that the animated version had. Like I didn't even like notice the song was really going on while he was singing it, and then it was over, and I was like, oh, that was the song that was from when he was singing with all the hyenas.
This must be one of the most evil songs in a Disney
and it was more just like I got my song right here, and then it's over, and then it goes to the next scene. I'm like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. But.
Yeah, no, it's definitely. I feel like they have all the means to make it a good movie, all of them, and they, for whatever reason, actually another one on the Aladdin. I don't know. So if you only watch 20 minutes of it, you won't even know that they actually give Jasmine like 1 or 2 songs.
I know that. I've discovered that.
And it's funny because I had no problem with those songs either. Like the addition of those didn't make the movie worse. It was the subtraction of the small details. Like I said, like changing from night to day, which is super easy to do. Mm-hmm. Like they could have just blue screened it. You know what I mean? Or not blue screened it, but like blue filtered it. Like they just something to make me feel, like, yeah, they definitely, the animation was done so freaking well to make it a real life movie and not realize what parts made it good it makes me disappointed in what movies might be coming out in the future. So Disney owns every single studio now.
So Disney live action movies it's such a difficult task because 1, they're competing with themselves, and 2, they're competing with nostalgia.
Yeah.
And you don't win against nostalgia. So the things that made an incredible impression on us as 90s kids when we watched them for the first time, either in the theaters or at home, you're just not going to compete with that, right? And we have the benefit of being able to go back and relive those experiences, and especially with Disney I had a huge collection of Disney movies on VHS, and I would watch them on repeat, right? And so we know we can go in and say, okay, this is how this scene made me feel, and these are all of the quirks with that scene, and you can say without even watching it how a scene transitions into another one, from going from dusk to night, and right when the music starts to swell, and you're not finding that with this new one. And newsflash, you would have never found something that makes that kind of statement.
Well,
or be able to find something that makes you feel the way you felt when you were watching it when you were a kid, right?
See,
so it's never going to satisfy that desire of yours, right?
So like the Beauty and the Beast movie, for example, after I was done watching that, I was like, that was a great movie comparative to like what I thought it might be, right? Sure. It wasn't amazing. I didn't get the same feeling I got from the cartoon, but I got the satisfaction of going, oh my God, the cartoon I watched as a kid is now a real thing. Like that's actually pretty cool. And they didn't do too much to ruin it. Like that's the whole, like basically all they have to do is not ruin it for it to be an enjoyable movie. That's why it's so devastating, because Aladdin is one of my top 5 Disney movies, and they ruined it. Like they all, like, even the scene, like there was another one. This one's mine.
Where's Beauty and the Beast rank for you?
For my favorite Disney movies?
Yeah.
It's actually not even in my top 5, I don't think.
Well, there's your answer right there. So Aladdin was your top 5.
Well, no, but that's what I mean though. But like, I can very distinctly describe the only scenes that bothered me, and if they had fixed them, I would have been okay with the movie. I just wanted to be okay with it. I didn't want it to be amazing. I just wanted it to not ruin it. Like the scene where,
and I agree. I think Aladdin is just the live action. I think it's mostly unwatchable.
Yeah, like for example,
I can't do it.
Hercules.
I think it.
That's my number one, and now they're making it.
Yeah.
I'm actually super excited because literally,
you should not be.
as long again, all they have to do is make epic fights. Get what's his face,
Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito play Philip Tedi's.
It's not going to be Danny DeVito. It's going to be.
And then I want Michael Bolton to sing.
It's going to be like Kevin Hart.
No, it's going to be Zac Efron and Ariana Grande. And
yeah,
you're not going to like it, and you're just going to have to accept that these movies aren't for people like us anymore.
Yeah, but like that's the thing too. Like that's what I mean. Like the Beauty and the Beast, though, I had still seen that hundreds of times. It's in my top 10, obviously, because like there's not like a ton of Disney movies. It might even be like number 6. It's not like it's really far down the ladder. It's just the fact that it's like, again, they just didn't ruin it. Like there's maybe 6 scenes in all of Aladdin that if they had fixed them, I would have been totally fine with the whole movie. The very first one, like I said, was the one where the genie is all of a sudden forgetful of Aladdin's name in the beginning. That was dumb. That scene where, like I was saying, the whole night and day and the guy looking him in the face rather than looking away as he walks away. The other one is when the genie is now bringing Aladdin, Prince Ali, that whole thing. During that song, he's supposed to be like teleporting throughout the crowd and like being different characters. Yeah. And they wait for like the whole song to be almost over. He dresses up as a woman once, kind of runs around, and then comes back. And I was like, what the hell? Like, what happened? Like, again, like even Will Smith, I expected more out of. Like, not to be Robin Williams, but like he wasn't even the lively Will Smith I'm used to. That's what I mean. Like, it wasn't like I needed it to be amazing. I didn't even get Will Smith in that movie. Like, I was like, what happened to Will? Like, I get that he's old now, but it's all CGI. Just like get some dude to dance and put his face on it. I'd be okay.
Will Smith has been depressed ever since he turned down The Matrix. So
yeah, right. to do what was it?
I can't remember what he did. What did he do?
It was the cowboy movie. Fuck.
Wild West.
Wild Wild West. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's actually crazy. Like that whole like I love Will Smith. Like I think he's a good actor. I like the movies that he's in. I could never picture him as Neo. The movie would have been too different. I don't think it would have hit the same way. Like Keanu Reeves, like specifically, one of the things that made it so powerful, he gave up like half his paycheck so that the movie could still be made. Like if you look at Keanu Reeves' whole life story, like he's just got an amazing life story. He's one of like the nicest people on planet Earth.
I think everyone can agree that Keanu Reeves is like the top 5 people on this planet.
Just don't
and like that's the thing is like and because of that, you could like that's in his character, like meaning like his acting character as well.
Yeah.
You can see him as this like loner, like because that's what he is in real life. Like he's like this loner who is so benevolent that he just does what's good for the greater good. Like like that's it's incredible. And I think that someone like Will Smith, I don't think would have like felt the same. And at the time, like especially for younger people, like Keanu Reeves wasn't in a ton of movies for younger people. You know what I mean? Like he was in, what was it, like Speed before that, stuff like that. Like there was good movies he was in. Like he was a big actor. But the point is that like if you thought of movies before The Matrix that Keanu Reeves was in, I bet it would take a second. Where I can name a bunch after.
Like Replacements. The Replacements, yeah.
Yeah, no, I remember. That's just funny that
Gene Hackman
first.
My Matrix and
John Wick.
Speed.
Why are we not saying Point Break?
Yeah, never saw that.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah,
oh my God.
But those, that's what I mean. But like you to like think about it. But yeah, exactly.
My favorite Keanu Reeves movie is actually Much Ado About Nothing.
Jesus, I don't even remember the plot of that movie, and I know I've seen it.
They're making a third one.
What?
Of what?
Bill and Ted.
Oh yeah. I'm excited for that.
Excellent. Yeah. So, after talking about Disney for 30 minutes.
why this belongs on Disney Plus.
Disney Plus.
Yeah, Disney Plus sponsor.
Imagine. Yeah, the one thing I had like a problem with in Aladdin actually was Jafar, like the person that played Jafar. I didn't believe him to be Jafar. I'm like, you're not as evil as he should be.
Gun to my head, I couldn't tell you, other than Will Smith, who else acted in that movie.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I don't remember any of the other actors. They were so like that's the other thing too. I think they didn't realize that like Robin Williams in a cartoon doesn't overshadow the rest of the movie. Like everyone remembers A Whole New World. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean,
no, like he makes
Robin
the
Williams
movie
is like 75% of why that movie is successful.
Oh, 100, yeah. No, he's 100% of the reason why the movie's successful. But the point is that he still makes the movie successful without making other things less. That's what I mean. Where with Will Smith in the movie, like it made everything else compared like, oh, like Will Smith has been in a bunch of amazing movies. What are all these other actors doing in this movie? Who are they? I've never seen it. Like, what is this? Right? And like you kind of like get deterred from it because Will Smith also doesn't fill the Will Smith role where Robin Williams filled the Robin Williams role. Like in the movie or in the cartoon, Robin Williams fucking nailed it. In the movie, Will Smith fell very flat, and not because he wasn't Rob Williams. He wasn't even the fun, happy, bouncy Will Smith. You know what I mean? Like that's why like you're expecting something from the best actor in the movie. And that was one of the worst like things in the movie.
I couldn't bring myself to devote even more than 20 minutes to that movie. Whereas I watched the live action version of Lady and the Tramp and adored it.
I didn't even know they made a live action version.
Yeah, I forgot that they made that. I just didn't watch it.
It launched with Disney Plus along with The Mandalorian.
Yeah,
and it's actually good, and it's really quite interesting. I mean, it doesn't reinvent the wheel, which I think is what
it's
what Aladdin tried to do.
I was about to say, it's actually funny about it. Everyone like gets like thinks about stuff like that when it comes to Disney, and then they forget like even the original was stolen. Like it's from the Grimm's Tales. Like
of course. Yeah.
Like they haven't had an original idea since their founding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Mickey Mouse. There you go. That's the one original idea.
Yeah.
Was it Aristotle or Plato or someone who said that there are 7 different types of stories? And
I think it's Plato because he's the one that like he's the one that made up like the story of Atlantis and stuff like, or at least he's the recorded person that came up with Atlantis and some other big one. Damn, I forgot. I was just watching something last night about it. That's it.
Yeah. So I mean, stories are going to repeat. I mean, that's
they're
fine.
now gonna do a live action of Hercules and apparently, not Treasure Planet.
Atlantis.
Yeah, Atlantis. And Tom Holland could be.
I don't buy
Milo.
that. No, I don't buy that.
Yeah, like Atlantis would actually be an interesting one. Like that, like I remember Atlantis. I used to watch it a lot at my grandmother's house when I was a kid. There's a couple of funny scenes, and basically, as long as they have that and they follow the basic premise, I'll enjoy that movie. As long as they don't mess. Again, they would have to like sabotage the movie for it to not be.
They already made a movie about Atlantis. It's called Stargate.
Dude, I was say, like, you're about to say Stargate. I knew exactly where you're going with that. That's funny.
There was a TV series about it, and it's done ad nauseum. I doubt they'll do Atlantis unless they're actually like scraping the bottom of the barrel for content.
Honestly,
I think there's
Atlantis...
like 20. I think there's 20 other Disney movies that they're in line to remake.
Yeah, Mulan still has to come out, which doesn't have Mushu or songs.
I bet you they do Robin Hood before then.
Oh yeah, Robin Hood. The
Rescuers. They'll probably nail before.
Fox version of Robin Hood. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Oodaladi, golly, what a day.
Yeah.
That's actually coming. No, that's actually being rebooted as like a live action.
By the way, that's how they're gonna sing it too. They're gonna sing it just like that.
Yeah, just
be flat as fuck.
But people are gonna complain about that movie because it's gonna be the same complaints that they had with Lion King, like, oh, it's CGI, it's not live action.
No,
like,
they'll probably actually use real people. They probably won't use foxes.
just enjoy what you enjoy. Everyone's going to complain about everything, so just find something that you can latch onto and
like John Wick.
Yeah, which I finally watched the first 2.
Have you seen all the John Wicks, by the way?
I have, yeah, but I'm not like a John Wick head or something.
No, the only reason why I really like it is because specifically the second and third one, the fight scenes. So I've been taking martial arts for like half a decade now, or a little longer, and like that, like the fight scenes were so phenomenally choreographed.
Okay.
Like there's very few things that he actually couldn't do. Like those are like most of those fight scenes are things that are very, very plausible. Obviously, you'd have to be an absolute master, but that's the whole premise of the movie is that he is, Baba Yaga, this basically demon, right? And but like outside of that, like everything that they do, like in the third movie specifically, that one's when it gets really specific with the fight scenes. That's all normal fight. Like those are all martial arts skills that he's using. Like I've done like probably 80% of the maneuvers he's done in controlled situations where he's just doing it in a death situation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that first film. As soon as it got into like universe building, where there's like a league of assassins and there's like a code and like coins, and I just like
I am from the League of Assassins.
Yeah, exactly.
Here to,
Like, darkness is your ally.
I am here to fulfill Ra's al Ghul's destiny.
No, I see.
Lovely voice.
I would say like obviously the first one's better because you're getting introduced to that world. But like again, like my biggest enjoyment of those movies is 100% the fight scenes. The plot is completely secondary because it's very.
I like the plot of the first one.
No. I'm saying of the second two. The first one, the plot was amazing. Everything about that movie was a really good premise. It was very cool because it's basically the equivalent if the Punisher was the greatest hitman alive. You know what I mean? Like it's that kind of thing where like instead of his whole family dying, the last remnants of his family dies and he freaking snaps, right? Like like that's why. And I love the original Punisher movie. Like that was a great movie. Like it wasn't
I think you might be the only one.
No. The original Punisher movie wasn't terrible.
With,
with Dolph
Thomas
Lundgren?
Jane. Oh no, not that one.
What
Thomas Jane or whatever his name.
I forgot his name. I'm terrible with actors' names.
I don't like the Warzone one, but I like the one
from the
that.
80s or the one from.
Oh no, not the one. Okay, sorry, I forgot that one even existed.
Yeah.
No. I guess the second.
How do you forget about that one?
It's easily forgotten.
I like the one that we know as the first one.
That was like what was it, late 90s. Early 2000, maybe.
Yeah, like
that's the one
2000s.
with Rebecca Ramin Stamos, right?
Yeah.
Is that his wife?
I don't remember.
It's John Stamos. Look here, full circle to Full House.
Yeah, there you go.
Uncle Jesse.
John Stamos. Did we just become best friends?
They should have renamed that movie Uncle Jesse and the Rippers.
But
how many Punisher movies have there been? There've been 3 now, right? And then 3 seasons of the Netflix series.
What's the third? When was the third one made?
Oh, Warzone, which is I don't like that one, but they have.
I don't think I've ever actually seen that one.
But they have
Alexandra. What's her name? The director, Alexandra. I've forgotten her last name. Anyway,
didn't you say Alexander the Great?
She's a great director, but I can't for the life of me remember her last name.
I didn't like.
Yeah, even the premise.
It was okay. I mean, but like honestly, I don't know how much you can elevate that subject material anyway. Like it's just going to.
Like that's what, yeah.
Right. But the Punisher show is amazing. I like that.
I still have to catch up on all that.
Yeah, he is definitely the Punisher. Like,
but anyways,
he plays that character very, very well.
Yeah,
and it's just
I like how they have all the bruises and stuff still on his face. Like he doesn't just go into makeup and he's magically fine again. Like he's playing out like the entire thing. Yeah, that's how I'm gonna do like my comics. Like if you're beaten to shit, like you're not gonna just magically be fine in the next.
That's like John Wick in the third movie. And by the end of it, he's just a puddle of blood. Like he's been stabbed. He's been cut. He's got the missing finger and shit. Like it's just ridiculous. Like,
and honestly, that's a holdover from like 80s action movies, because those when you put in main characters into that amount of peril, you couldn't show that in the 60s and 70s, right? And I honestly think it wasn't until Die Hard where you didn't see actual consequences for your main character, and living with the bruises and the cuts and those types of things. I think we owe a lot to John McClane for the our modern content needs. No, I really appreciate that from the Netflix series. I think most Netflix series for the Marvel extended universe, just you get episode fatigue though, because they've got about four shows of content written across 10 episodes or 13 episodes, and so what you end up with is a lot of, oh, we're going to have another conversation in this one motel that lasts half an episode.
Did you binge them, or did you watch them separately? Because I think that's probably one of the reasons I've enjoyed them a lot. Is I watched them separately. Very separately.
Yeah. I try to only watch if I have like a bunch of episodes queued up, or if they all release at once. Which is actually why I like the Disney Plus model a lot better than the Netflix model. See, everything goes back to Disney.
Yeah, we were talking about that 2 podcasts ago about the fact that I think that by having episodes by having them separated, like actually so you cannot binge watch them, they are definitely more enjoyable and more memorable. Like a lot of the stuff that came out, like some people just don't remember like anything from the show because they binge watched it all in one evening, and your brain doesn't have enough time to process all of that. Like when you go to sleep and you have to like remember everything that happened during the day, if you watched 8 episodes of the same show back to back, you will not remember all of it. Like it's just impossible. Like it's overload. And so like that's another reason why like you lose that that carrying along with the characters. You don't get that feel anymore, that's why I do it.
It's also a lot smarter marketing wise as well, because if you release all of your content, best case scenario, people are going to be talking about this thing on social media for like 4 weeks, right? It's kind of the longevity of a show.
Yeah.
You watch 12 episodes, for the next 4 weeks, people are actually talking about it and it might be trending, right? If you're releasing an episode a week and it's, 12 episodes per season, you're going to prolong the amount of time that people are actually talking about that. And that might actually get you until when, they start releasing the toys and the other type of merchandising, right? So that's such a smarter in terms of marketing.
It's actually interesting too. One of the things that I was watching a video about how cinema is probably going to fail after COVID, and the whole reason is that they were kind of failing before it, but now obviously people can't go there. But the main reason they were failing before it, and the main reason that they're going to continue to fail after it, is the fact that essentially, aside from like soaring ticket prices and the cost of popcorn being literally 100 times more than if you bought it at home, like aside from all of that, the main thing is that I remember as a kid, like a movie would come out in theaters. If you wanted it on VHS, you had to wait like 6 months. Like it was almost a year. Some of them were longer than that. It was like, you're like, dude, didn't that movie come out 2 years ago and the VHS is just coming out? Like it felt like that. And now I believe the wait time from film to like, on demand or DVD is like 3 months at most. So like that's the issue, is you lose a lot of that lag time. And I think they think it's making them more money, but coincidentally what it's doing is fatiguing people to the point where eventually like they're not going to enjoy going. Like that's like, how many movies do you see a year? Like in theaters, like at most it's like one for me. It's like a Marvel movie, but then, now I haven't, like outside of that, like I don't need the movie theater experience for 90% of those movies.
No.
And so like, because of that, it's very much lost its luster by like shortening the time span.
No, I absolutely agree. As soon as Netflix came out and other streaming services came out, it was, that's the slow, descent. Right?
Yeah, into madness.
They're not going to survive this. I know they're blaming like COVID, and now
all it did was accelerate it.
Cineplex or Odeon or whatever, AMC are now saying that they're not going to release Universal movies.
Regal.
Yes, it's AMC and Regal. Which, if anything, that's just going to shut them down faster, which is a poor move.
Yeah, it's a dying industry, right?
I like drive-ins.
Yeah, I still love drive-ins. 2 movies
for the novelty of
it.
It's a lot of fun. I think we have.
They just need better marketing.
A couple here.
You could be the marketer for drive-ins.
Dude, I really do. Like, there's 2 drive-ins I used to go to as a kid: Jericho and Malta drive-ins in upstate New York. And like, I would love to market for them. Like, their website is still their website from the 90s. It's like they update the movies on it. That's it.
It's still got a GeoCities.
It still has GIFs on it that are like blink, blink, blink. I'm like, Jesus, I'm gonna have a seizure, and I don't even have that problem.
I honestly, I would, if like, gun to my head, like, hey, you need to either watch this movie in a theater. You get surround sound. It's a THX certified theater. People will deliver drinks to you on demand, or you can watch this at home. I'll take it home.
See, for me, it's like Marvel movie theater, like because of how epic it is, something like that. Everything else, I would like to watch in something like a drive-in because you get the family bonding, all that stuff, and all of the other stuff that's why their marketing's bad, is because like they're just like, yeah, come see a movie, and it's like, no, like, market the fact that you get 2 movies for the price of half a ticket.
Sometimes there's 3.
Yeah, sometimes there's 3. Sometimes you luck out, right? And then the other thing is that you can. You also get outside, all that stuff. Like they need to market the nostalgia of it, because like that, like there's like a 1/10 of how many there used to be.
Yeah, they could do that like thing, like intermission, and then it'd be like, visit a dirty bathroom, popcorn.
I prefer to watch Endgame on my phone, actually.
And then you could just start screaming while listening with your headphones, like, yeah,
Wilson. Wait,
on my phone while I'm getting a significant amount of glare just off of half the screen,
like on an airplane, like through the window, like directly off the sun.
Yes,
like
while you're breathing recycled air. That's the way cinema was intended, I think.
Yeah.
You took everything from me. I don't even know who you are.
What did he say? I don't know. They interrupted.
Like, Tony, could you just wait? I get it. You want to snap. Just hold on. Everyone's talking. Rude.
Excuse the interruption, ladies and gentlemen. We are now at cruising altitude.
So anyways, now that we've tangented off the trails, but still pulling it back in with a nice little hook. Speaking of the longevity of all of these, where do you see yourself as a comic creator in 5 years, 10 years, etc.?
Oh no! Hopefully, I'll get the sequel done.
In 5 years,
it took me 10 years to do the first one. I don't know how long it's going to take for the second.
Cut that in half, make it 5. I believe in you.
You can even hire Disney.
I mean, ideally, yeah, because well, now that we've been sponsored by Disney Plus, I think, we're going to get some real top-notch talent on.
It's an obvious transition, yeah.
I really want the one that I'm working on. It's called Alice of Spades. It's about obviously character Alice, who is Jack's younger sister, and she kind of goes on her own series of adventures while Jack's doing his. That's already been written. It's been written for a while. We're just shopping around for an artist. And as soon as we can lock one down, I want to get that as a trade out for the con season next year.
Nice. So if that's the case, you should definitely chat with Greg after this. And he's connected with so many freaking artists, like it's ridiculous.
Well, I'm very picky.
That's the point. Like he knows a wide variety of artists that have because that's the thing is, if you're looking for a feel, you want a certain artist, and even if he might not have it, but he might also help with the direction that you're.
Oh, sure, yeah, no, I'd love to pick his brain. So I've kind of got a short list of people that I've been talking to. I have like a dream team that I want to work on it. Obviously, that's probably not going to go down. But we really want to get this out for next year, and then right after that, I just want to move on to the next project. So honestly, if like 5-10 years from now, if I can still be working on the material that I like to do and the content that I like to put out and telling stories that I want to tell, then that's pretty much how I would define success at this point. It's going to be very difficult, especially with what's going on right now, with how this is actually going to impact this type of industry. Because for indie creators, it's all about cons. It's all about conventions. It's about meeting people, and it's about, you know, gathering in large public spaces. And if we're, you know, 18 months away from those things opening up again, like that's, I don't even know how to predict how that will impact this industry.
I think that my prediction will be that there's the adapt or die concept, and I think that essentially the indie creators that will be able to survive it are going to be the ones that basically learn how to market themselves online. Like that's going to be like the biggest thing. Like honestly, like that they should have been picking it up years ago.
There I go.
Yeah. Well, no, that's the whole point. Is like like that's one of the reasons why we built our platform. Is we work with several creators, and we're basically their marketing machine for the most part. But now we're also like teaching them, like, you know, hey, these are tactics you can use to, you know, grow your platform. Like we ran a Kickstarter that basically, you know, from one of the books back there, talked about how to launch a business or a product. And basically, I got that checklist, gave it to Greg, and I go, Greg, make this work for a Kickstarter. And he did, and we got almost double what we asked for.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's the whole point, is like, you know, it's not as difficult as people think it is. You just have to learn something you didn't know you could learn before. And that's what I mean, the whole adapt or overcome. It's, you know, or adapt and overcome, or adapt or die, right? Like you gotta figure out how to get around the obstacle rather than waiting for the obstacle to move itself.
I ran an Indiegogo campaign for our first issue, and that was barely successful. So, you know, surpassing those milestones is a huge accomplishment. So that,
yeah, we'll have to after this, Greg will have to email you the checklist. It's one of our blogs, I believe, right, Greg? Yeah, and it's basically it's a 39-step launch plan that he figured out about 21 of them were applicable for a Kickstarter. So he broke it down into a blog and simplified it for creators. And like that's the whole point. Like we basically started our company thinking that we were only going to be producing and creating our own comics. Mm-hmm. And after seeing how difficult it was to do it ourselves, we were setting up systems along the way we realized could help other people. So then we basically just started bringing other people along and going, hey, want to you know, skip a few steps? Because, you know, instead of every creator having to figure out all the stuff that we tripped over, we're hoping to, you know, at least unveil the obstacles so people know that there's something they're going to have to get around well before they end up tripping over it.
No, that sounds really cool.
Yeah. So speaking of social media, where do you want people to find you?
Oh, yeah. So shameless self-promotion right now. I don't even know anymore. I think we have an Instagram account that I'm never on anymore because the world is falling apart and I just have not found the time to actually engage on social media all that much. But you can check out the series at thesagaofthejackofspades.com. We have an Instagram account. It's just the Saga of the Jack of Spades. Honestly,
is that Jack of Spades or Jack of the Spades?
The Saga of the Jack of Spades.
Two does. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's a long title. Yeah, we're aware.
We'll put it in the description. No worries.
Yeah, honestly, if you Google us, we're like the first 6 pages that come up. But if you wanted to reach out to us, I mean, you'd be able to find us. As far as the book, you can get it online. You can either get it through Renegade Arts through their book ordering website. You can get it through us at thesagaofthejackspades.com. You can get it off of Barnes & Noble, Amazon. I think it's on Comixology. I mean, anywhere really where you get comics, you'd be able to find ours.
Very nice.
Sweet.
Well, it's definitely awesome chatting with you. It was fun tangenting and bringing it all back around. And we definitely will have to have you back for another chat when you get that next comic rolling.
Absolutely. No, would love to.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. And we're going to cut the podcast here.